Okay, well, this is our second try. We had some audio problems before. So welcome to Beyt Kol, Israel. This is one of the feast days. It's not one of the weekly Shabbats, so our readings are quite different. This is the day of Yom Teruah. In Judaism and in the Jewish world, they call this Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. In the Christian side, they call it the day of blowing shofars, but in actuality, it's neither. The head of the year is actually in the month of Aviv. The Bible says this shall be the head of the months, which means the beginning of the year. This is called the first day of the seventh month. It's not the first day of the first month. And I personally believe, having done some study on this, that this idea of having a new year this time of year actually comes from Babylon. And in our secular world, this is where we get the economic fiscal year. The fiscal new year starts, it's always around this time, between October and December, depending. And it's varied now over the years, but I remember when I was very young, which is a long, long time ago, that fiscal new year almost always started around September, October, this time.
Yeah, so there's two trains of thought, but Henry Gordon had a thing on his website about the Babylonian influence.
Yep.
It's also
Okay.
Also the rabbis in the 2nd century decided to change it to Rosh Hashanah, and they'll say it's because it was a civil New Year.
Yes, and you can color it any way you want. You can put silk clothing on a pig; it's still a pig. It's wrong. It's not right. When I first started becoming a messianic believer, going back to Torah, but you listen to the rabbinical side because they've been doing this for thousands of years, and there's a lot of stuff they do very correctly, but there's a lot of stuff they've added. But just like in Christianity, there's some stuff they do correctly, but they've thrown a lot of stuff out, and a lot of it's traditions that have overlaid to the actual, to the point where the traditions are followed and the actual part is forgotten, because this is day of alarm. Yom, okay, up here. Yom does mean day, and teruah is an alarm. So teruah is alarming or doing an alarm. It's an action. It's a tense. So this is the day of alarm. Well, guess what? In the book of Revelation, after there have been 5 months of darkness in the entire world, all of a sudden the sky is going to open up, and this loud shofar, the voice of Jehovah, of Yeshua, is going to be blaring out, and this is a day of alarm. It says in these times that the wicked will seek holes in the ground and want rocks to fall on them because they're afraid of the brightness of the light that's coming, and Messiah is the light of the world. That's what Yom Teruah is. 10 days from now, we're going to have Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is when the wicked are destroyed. Not only when he comes and destroys a 200 million man army that's trying to kill all the people that are mostly Jews that are in what we call present day Israel. Basically half of Jerusalem is going to be left, and this world is going to send this huge army, and Messiah is just going to wipe them out. But also at the end of time, at the end of the millennium, this is when Satan and all of his are thrown into destruction. It's called the lake of fire, which is a metaphor for the ultimate destruction. Because when time ends, all matter goes back to energy. That's a fire that can't be put out. Zechariah chapter 13. 13 verse 7. It's in Zechariah chapter 13. A third of mankind will pass through the fire. When in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, when they stoked up the fire in Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, fire was 7 times hotter than it had ever been. It killed the people who slew the fire, and Satan is the one who's trying to destroy us. But they passed through the fire, and there's a fourth one in there to Nebuchadnezzar. Didn't we throw 3 in there? I see a fourth one like the Son of God. These are all metaphors of these end times, and that's what these high holy days are all about, these end times from Yom Teruah. And now in Judaism, which I love this, they call these the 10 days of awe. Because from now till Yom Kippur, will you be written in the book of life or not? You start to wonder. This is a day of alarm. This is the day of judgment is at hand. And if we look at all the Torah cycles, Passover is the day when those who have a salvation relationship with Messiah, the blood of Messiah that forms on the lintel and the 2 mezuzot, the 2 doorposts, that spells the letter Chet, which Chet and Yod is the nailed hand, that spells life. If we have the markings of the blood of Messiah, which will give us life on the door, he will pass over us. That in the end time, at the end of the millennium, that's the judging of the world. Do you have a salvation relationship with Messiah or not? If yes, you are passed over, you are put onto the right side of Messiah. If you don't, you are on the left side. Remember, Gerizim and Eval, the blessing and the curse, all these things are related. And then it's at Yom Kippur when the wicked are destroyed. and only those who have passed through this fire of judgment will be allowed into eternal kingdom. This day is the precursor to that. This starts that time where we need to be aware. So before we...
10 days. That's essentially...
10 is test. 10 commandments. 10 is test. This is the final test. So before we go any further, so Lord Yeshua, we need to open up with prayer. I know we've done this introduction, but now we are starting to enter into your word, enter into relationship with you. You say wherever two or more are gathered in your holy name, Lord Yeshua, and you are the Holy One, the only one and truly Holy One. So we come before you and ask you for forgiveness because we are the unholy ones right now because we have sin in our lives. Please, Lord Yeshua, forgive us for our known and our unknown sins. In fact, we want to confess sins all the way back to Adam. We want the whole body of Messiah, the whole house of Israel, spiritual Israel, to be clean. Please be with our brothers, our Jewish brothers who are scattered all over the world, but now the majority are now in the land of what we call Israel, and also with the Christian side, Lord Yeshua, which is the other house of Israel, Ephraim and Yehuda and Ephraim. Please, Lord Yeshua, bless us all, forgive all our sins. We thank you for everything that you have done. That's why we worship you and you alone, because you died for us, for everyone on earth, that if we confess that we are sinners and we want to be with you and be holy and be as you are in your image, that you will do so. That's why we worship you and you alone. And now we call on that precious promise as we come into these very important days, these days of awe. Let us go through these readings and please teach us according to your purpose as individuals and as groups to bring us to a clearer understanding and a deeper relationship with you. And for that we give holy thanks in your name, Yeshua. Amen and amen. So, now I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. I need to turn this one on. Yeah, I'm going to blow the shofar again. So, okay. Now we also do an audio recording. If you go to our website, Beyt Kol Israel, there's a section called recording. So if you want to just review the audio side, and it's a reduced format, don't do all the introduction part, even though it's on here right now. Again, this is Yom Teruah, a day of blowing alarm. I'm going to head and this is the day where the voice of Messiah, which is reckoned to be like the shofar. Okay, that's a miniature Tekiah Gadol, or Gadolah. That should wake us up. We're going to have 5 months of darkness, the book of Revelation says, and if Messiah says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And the whole world will be in darkness. This is all the way back to Isaiah. The world will be in choshech, physical darkness, and the peoples, the countries, all the nations of the world be in arafel, spiritual darkness. And this will wake us up, because the sky will open up. From darkness we go to this unimaginable brightness of the Holy One, tearing through space and time, coming to save his people and destroy the wicked. That's what this is all about. This is the beginning of that time. Our readings come from Bereshit, also known as Genesis. So again, Hebrew, Torah, names for books, and this is what the English Bible, it's the same Bible, just different names. So Bereshit, which does mean at the head, over in the beginning of Genesis, which means at the starting things, 21:1 through 21:34. Bamidbar, which is in the wilderness, and it's called Numbers in your English titled Bibles, because there they number the people, but actually Bamidbar is talking about being in the wilderness. Ezekiel reminds us in these last times we will be in the wilderness of the peoples, of the countries. Wherever we're scattered, it's a spiritual wilderness. Our Haftorah portion comes from 1 Samuel 1:1 through 10. Our Brit Hadashah, that's the Testament with the N in front of it, New Testament. It's one Testament. There's the older part and the newer part. Comes from Luke 21:1 through 38, 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 4:18, and Revelation, there's 8:1 through 9:21, and Acts 2:14 through 2:18. So, we're going to talk about some of the traditional stuff that happens So, things that you're going to hear say, Kativa v'chatima tova, may be written and sealed for a good year being understood. I'd like actually leaving this out, because may you be found written and sealed for good. Absolutely. Are you written in the book of life? You're sealed for blessing, for good. That's something you'd have to look at. We'll do it another time. Shana Tova, people are going to say a good year. Shana Tova u metuka, a good and sweet year. Lashana Tova. Tikavetu, may you be inscribed in the book of life for good. Actually, I need to change that year. Oh, I changed it here and forgot up here. Gam Lachaz for you also, that's to a man. Kativa Vachitima Tova, may you be written and sealed for a good year or for good. Absolutely. Teruah, Yom Teruah means day of alarm. Shofars are made from the horns of clean animals or kosher male animals. The Ashkenazi shofar is typically made from the horn of a ram. I'm going to step off camera here for a minute. Now I'm back. Okay, a ram, a sheep's horn. That's typically for the house of Yehuda. Sephardic, they tend to use the kudu, but there's many different kinds of clean animals. Some of them, I can't remember the name of the one. It's just a straight black horn. I can't remember what animal it's from. It produces an incredibly deep, powerful sound. There are basically 4 types of shofar blasts. There's a tekiah, which is a long, solid blast. Shevarim, which is a medium blast, kind of goes, oh, oh. The teruah, which is a series of 3 of these blasts. The tekiah gadola, which is the one I just blew. A very long version of the tekiah is held as long as possible. And I've been speaking, and then sometimes you can blow for like a minute or 2 if you have a good breath. And the tekiah and teruah and shevarim are of equal lengths, and the tekiah is of half length of either one. That's just, there's all these type of blasts. Now, traditionally in the house of Yehuda on this day, they blow 100 different shofar blasts. That's nothing about that in the Bible. If you want to do it, that's fine, a tradition. But we choose to just, because Messiah talks about the blast of the shofar, the sound of his voice will grow louder and louder and louder. Because the word Hebrew, kol, can mean noise or voice or sound. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into readings. Let me advance here quickly. Okay, our first reading is from Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 21, 1 through 34. And Jehovah visited at Sarah. So why are we talking about Sarah now? Because now we're finding out that God has appointed times for everything, and everything that happens, the major events happen at these specific appointed times. So now, as Sarah visited Sarah, as he had said, and Jehovah did for Sarah as he had spoken, and Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the appointed time in which Elohim had spoken to him. So now, I know we're at Yom Teruah, but there's a series of feast days. We're going to have Yom Teruah, then Yom Kippur, and 5 days after that comes Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. Messiah came to tabernacle with us. So this is about Messiah. Messiah is born from Sarah, and he is born at the Feast of Tabernacles. And called Abraham at the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Yitzchak, which is laughter. There's all kinds of meanings in here. But remember, they laughed. Sarah laughed when she heard that Messiah basically told Abraham that she's going to have a child at 90 years old, and she hadn't had her menses, no period, for many years. So she laughed, and God said, "Why did you laugh?" "I didn't laugh." He says, "Oh yeah, you did." So God has a great sense of humor, but it's not just humor. This is a tremendous word. It's Yitzhak. It's Vayamol Avraham et Yitzhak, and circumcised Abraham at his son being 8 days old, as Elohim commanded at him. Okay, now Sukkot is a 7-day festival, but on the 8th day, which is called the Great Day, this is also eternity, because we take our letter 8 and put it on its side, it's infinity. So it's a 7-day festival. The 8th day is eternity, is infinity, because it says in the book of Revelation, and time will end. So that when the 7th day ends, time as we know it ends. There's still sequential events, but there's no sun and moon marking out dark and light, because we will have light forever. So we go into eternity. This is when our hearts are circumcised. This is when Messiah was circumcised on the 8th day. This is when he was given the name, when he's brought into the temple, and he's held up, and the guy says, remember the man who said he was going to die, what was his name again? I always forget. Anyway, he says, he was promised that he would see Messiah before he died. And he says, I have seen the Yeshua Elohim, the salvation of Jehovah, Yeshua, Jehovah. Yeah. So He got his name on the 8th day. Also, we will be handed a lively stone with our new names on the 8th day. Name is nature, our new holy natures instead of our corrupt nature, resurrected in the spiritual, not in the physical.
So, this whole idea of a circumcised heart, people say your heart is circumcised now.
No.
That's also a promise.
That's a promise. That's a prophecy.
Circumcision is getting rid of this flesh.
Yes.
That's when our heart will stop being stone and be flesh.
Yeah, because if what you think about physical circumcision is it can only happen to men physically. Now the Muslims actually circumcise their women too, which is a horrible procedure they do. It's not supposed to do that. But it's not about the physical act as what does it represent. Because mul means to destroy, to take part of the body off. It's a type and shadow. When we're resurrected, this flesh is removed from us, and now we enter into a spiritual covenant of holiness, which now finally can take place because we're resurrected in the Adamic form. This is before Adam was split. Adam, when he was created by God, was neither male nor female. He was just Adam. And I'm not talking he's transgender or unity sex or any of that. He was just Adam. There's no male or female aspect to him. He was just Adam. We're going to be resurrected in that form. He was also spiritual, non-fleshly bound. When Messiah was resurrected, what's he called? The second Adam. He could open a door with his hand or he could walk right through the wall, not bound by the fourth dimension of time. So we're going to be in that original holy form, wrapped in light. For the Bible says God is wrapped in light. The original Chinese teachings from Shangti, one God of heaven, they talk about people who are wrapped in light. The Chinese characters show that happiness is 2 people in a garden. Salvation is 8 people in a boat. I mean, we're going back to the original Genesis form before the fall. And Abraham was 100 years old when Yitzhak, his son, was born. That's 10 times 10, which is 100. It's the big test. And he's going to have some tests here with Isaac because he's going to have to bind him. He takes him up on, that's the time of Passover, by the way. It's on the Mount of Olives where he takes him in Moriah.
I believe that's one of the reasons why God says the ram's horn, because the ram's caught in the thicket.
Ram's caught in the thicket because he's the Lamb of God, the adult male lamb who's now our teacher and our Savior. He was at 33 and a half years old is when he died. That's when Isaac was brought onto that mountain. He had to agree with his father to allow him. His father's 133 years old. And he's still pretty strong. He can pick Isaac up and put him on the altar, but he bound him. And, you know, if I'm 30 years old, my 133-year-old father says, you mind if I tie you up and kill you? He says, we might have an issue. I remember even Isaac says, look, I see the fire and I see the wood. Where's the sacrifice that we're talking about? And remember he told the people he left behind, I and the lad will go up and return to you. But he knows he's supposed to go up on top of this mountain and kill his son. So if he's going to kill him and come back, that means he has to resurrect him. So this is a Passover. So all these appointed times matter. By the way, if Abraham's 100, it means Sarah's 90 because she's 10 years younger. I find this interesting because my parents were almost exactly 10 years apart. My father being 10 years older than my mother. And Sarah said, the God of gods, which is what Elohim means, it's a singular superlative, has made me to laugh. Tzachok, Yitzhak. Okay? Everyone who hears will yitzahak, laugh for me. So you can see this, the root of this word in all these different planes. Now it's not mitzahak, which can have a sexual overtone. That's very close. In fact, later on when Isaac gets weaned and Ishmael mitzachek, he's trying to abuse him, sexually abuse him. That's what that means. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse sons? For I have borne him a son in his old age. Now this is the son of promise, not the son of slavery, which is what Ishmael represents. Because Hagar, which is not his wife, is like a concubine. Remember they said, well, you know, if, we haven't had a kid yet, so it's supposed to be from Abraham. We'll bring Hagar in there. But Hagar's from Ham, and that's not supposed to, Shem and Ham descendants are not supposed to join in marriage. It's just not supposed to. And so that's a slave giving birth to a son in slavery or in servitude. But this is a son of freedom and son of promise. And the boy grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day Yitzhak was weaned. And Sarah saw at Ben Hagar HaMitzrit, the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mitzachek, making sport, and it's sexual. The proof of this is later on when Isaac and Rebekah are in the land of the Philistines, and he says, she is my sister. But then Avimelech, the king, sees them mitzacheking. They're making out. So that's the proof of that. You have to know some Hebrew, but you have to link these, because remember, the Bible teaches the Bible.
Used in Genesis as well, but the definition doesn't come until that.
Until that point, way later on. Yep. And she said to Abraham, thrust out this handmaid and let her son, for the son of this handmaid will not be heir with my son Yitzhak. So some people put, he's just mocking him. You mean you're going to send someone out to a death sentence in the desert with one little bag of water? This is a death sentence. No, he was trying to abuse the boy, trying to abuse Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in the sight of Abraham on account of his son, because he loved him. Guess what? Jehovah loved Satan. He created him. But he became disobedient, rejected his father. And Elohim said to Abraham, do not let it be grievous in your sight because of the boy and because of your handmaid, in that all that Sarah says to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac, Yitzhak, will your singular seed be called. Seed, Zara, singular, it points to Messiah. That's what Paul writes about in the New Testament. Singular seed is Messiah. And it's through this line of Isaac that Messiah comes. It's not through the line of Ishmael. Now, the Arabs say that it was Ishmael who was bound, and it wasn't Isaac. So they have a completely different line. It's just like Cain and Abel, right? You have the two different lines in competition with one another. Now, I will also make a goy at son of the handmaid, because he is Zaracha, your seed. Okay, now, a singular nation, a singular tribe. So, from Isaac, you get the tribe of Messiah, singular. When we're resurrected, we're in the Adamic form, not any fleshly serpent mode. When the wicked are resurrected, they are also a singular goy, but that's the satanic side. Remember, there's two trees, tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil. We are but branches on a tree. So in the end, we're going to have two nations at the resurrection, one that's completely spiritual, Adamic, and one that's completely physical. They're switching sides. There are people, because the people, we don't know who's who, but Yeshua does. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took at bread and a skin of water, like a Boda bag, if you've ever seen those. I used to have one when I went backpacking. And gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and gave at the boy and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Be'er-Sheva. So this is the well of seven or oath. Sheva means seven. Shabbat, Sheva, rest. Rest, Sabbath, seven, oath, promise. They're all related to this word Sheva.
You got to know that he's about 14 years old now.
Yes. He is 14 years. Yes. He's about 14 years old. You're talking about Ishmael. Yeah, he's 14. In fact, well, no, he's older than that, because
Was Isaac weaned?
See, we don't know for sure. So let's start out. We don't know what age they were, but weaning in long ago days, children were on the breast milk for a long, long time, because there was a lot of death among children. It was not, if you read American history, you read like parents that have 13 children, 7 which had died before the age of 3. So they kept them on the mother's milk, because the mother gives her immunity to the child. So it wasn't like this dependence. It actually kept, and so once the child was vigorous enough and you could tell they're going to make it, then you would wean them and get them off the mother's milk. And it's a great celebration, because you basically know this child's going to make it and probably make it to adulthood. So let's say 5. Let's say 3.5. But remember, Ishmael was 13 when he was circumcised. That's also when Isaac was born. On the 8th day, he was circumcised. So 3.5 years. He's like 16, 17 years old. I like the one comedian says, there's no indication of what age Satan was when he rebelled, but I'm guessing he was a teenager. Hire a teenager, well, they still know everything. I mean, there's many jokes. Look, we all were teenagers, We all went through that. We know everything when we actually know almost nothing. So anyway, she departed and went to this area of Beersheba. Look on your map for Beersheba. It's basically south of Jerusalem. It's in the upper part of the Negev. And the water in the skin of the bottle was spent, and she cast at the boy under one of the shrubs, and she went and sat down opposite, a good way off, about a bow shot away. So that's a pretty good distance. Do not let me see the death of the boy. And she sat opposite him and lifted up her voice and wept. Now remember, it's not in this reading, but if you had read the previous chapters in here, Jehovah had already spoken to her when she became pregnant, and Sarah treated her harshly because, basically Hagar says, hey, I slept with Abraham once and now I'm pregnant. What's wrong with you? Kind of a thing. She started treating Hagar very harshly, and she went to run away. And Jehovah says, don't worry, go back and submit to Sarah, and the boy, I will make of the boy a great nation. But she had forgotten that promise in her times of trouble. Guess what? In the time of tribulation, what does Messiah say when he comes back? Will I find any faith? Because the oppression that's coming on us tends to make us forget the promises of God. But it's to both houses. Yeah. So she's weeping in disbelief. This is not a weeping of belief. It's a weeping of disbelief. And Elohim, the God of gods, heard at the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Jehovah, I need to change that. It should say messenger, not angel. Anyway, I have already changed it. This is just an older, I brought these texts in from an older translation. And the messenger of Jehovah, which is Messiah. Malach Jehovah is Messiah. It's God himself. The arm of Jehovah is not too short, so when he comes into space and time, he's coated with the flesh of Messiah, the man. So called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for Elohim has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Get up, lift up at the boy, and hold him in at your hand, for I will make him a great nation, which repeats the promise he had already given her. Yes?
I had a thought is that if he was 16, let's say.
Yes.
Or whatever age after 13, isn't he of age of reasoning?
Yes. Yes.
So he could be...
he can understand this. Yeah, he could be praying as well. And, there's every indication that Messiah is still talking to her and talking to the boy. He hasn't fallen away completely. There's still a chance. In fact, when we get into the sacrifices, remember it talks about the firstborn after the Exodus. I know we're covering a lot of stuff here, but the whole Bible's interlinked. It's a hypertext document. Every part of the Bible relates to other parts. Now, when we talk about when Messiah says after the Exodus, after he kills the firstborn in Egypt, he says what? The firstborn are mine. So the firstborn of sons you have to sacrifice a lamb for, because Messiah died for us. He's the lamb of our sacrifice. But he says the firstborn lamb and the sheep you shall not shear or work them, and they must die. And if you want to save the firstborn of a donkey, you must sacrifice a lamb. Well, Ishmael is called like a donkey, wild donkey. By the way, I talked to an Israeli woman years ago when I was in Hawaii, and I went to Reform synagogue there on a Shabbat. And we talked afterwards because we had some interesting interchange in that meeting. And she told the congregation that the word they used about a jackass of a man, it's a term they use in Israel for a child that you cannot control. But I believe, and there's every indication, there's a lot of Muslims that are Messiahs coming to them and talking to them, and they're coming out of Islam and they're coming into a belief of Messiah. So God says, I would that all would come unto me for salvation. Doesn't matter what your birth is, it matters what your relationship is. And Elohim opened up her eyes and she saw the well of water, which is already there. She's right by the well, but can't see it for distress of spirit, right? People get so distressed and they believe that they're unworthy and they can't see that Messiah is there for their salvation. It's the same idea. And she went, she saw the well of water, and she went and lifted at the skin, the bottle of water, and gave it the boy to drink. So now he's drinking of this word of promise. It's the well of promise. And the Elohim was with the boy, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer, a hunter. That's not a good term in the Bible, hunters. Remember, Nimrod was a mighty hunter in the face of God before him. You're like, look what I just did. Esau, yeah. I remember, when I was growing up, people used to go on safari in Africa just to kill big animals, just to kill them. That's Nimrod's attitude. It's not something you need to eat, and then they put an elephant or a tiger or a lion or a bear on their wall. Why? Yeah. Oh, I always like the part in Harry and the Hendersons when he starts taking all the dead animals off, and he shoves them in a closet, and the Sasquatch sees it, and they bury them all and have a service for all the dead animals. Yeah, we need to, if we're going to kill something, it better be for a purpose for our lives, not just for the joy of hunting and killing something. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. So now Paran is later on when they leave Mount Sinai and they go up to enter the land where the spies went in. Paran is that place. This is also where some of the Canaanites come down and they attack and they have a war. Joshua, remember? So places, names, appointed times, everything is related. These are specific entry and exit points. Where Jericho was built, that's where Adam and Eve, when they were kicked out of the garden, that's where they exited. So guess what? That's where we enter back in. When Jacob goes into Egypt, he ends up at Sukkot down to Ramses. When they leave, they go from Ramses to Sukkot and out. When Peter denied Messiah 3 times, then Messiah asks him 3 times, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? See, it came to pass at that time that Avimelech, now this is more of a title, because if my father is king, I'm king. Okay, that's basically what that means. And Beyt Kol, the commander of his army, spoke to Avram. The reason I say this is because many years later, there's going to be another Avimelech that also has interaction with Isaac. Saying, Elohim is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me by Elohim that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with the son of my son. That means generationally. But according to the mercy that I have done to you, so shall you do to me and to the land in which you have sojourned. Guess what? This is an oath. So this is the Philistines. How have they treated God's people over the years? Horribly. So then God will treat them as the way they've treated God's people. He punished them. They wiped out. Yeah, the Philistines were completely wiped out. Yeah. So when people say they live in the land of the Philistines, or they say they're Palestinians, which is Philistines, it's a lie because there are none. They're Arabs. And Abraham said, I will swear. This is our fault. We make all kinds of oaths with people who won't keep them, and then we don't believe in the oaths of God, which he keeps all of his promises. And Abraham reproved at Avimelech because of your water well, which the servants of Avimelech had taken by force. They want the water, but they don't want the God of the water. Right? The one world government wants to control the whole physical world, but they don't want the creator of this world. And Avimelech said, I do not know, now this is a lie, I do not know who has done at this thing, neither did you tell me, neither did I hear of it until today. In Islam, they call Allah the great deceiver. He's the best liar of all. That's that same spirit. And Abraham took it sheep and oxen and gave them. And our God, what does our God say? He cannot lie. It doesn't say he won't lie. He cannot lie. Well, and I say Allah cannot tell the truth. He's the opposite.
I mean, God has to, remember he said, I need somebody to go lie for me.
Yes, for Ahab, yeah. So Ahab will go to battle, yeah. It's a satanic force. It says, yeah, I'll go lie for you. Guess what? Everything's under God's control. And Avimelech said, I do not know who did this, right? That's not true. And Avram took a sheep and oxen and gave them to Avimelech, and the two cut, karat, a covenant. So what they did, they divided an animal and walked between it. This is like the ultimate oath in these times, where you say, look, if either of us break this covenant, maybe you look like the animal we just divided. By the way, Abraham, when Messiah shows him all the promise from his time all the way to the end times, he's in a tardama, a deep trance, sleep, seeing the future, and he'd cut all these animals in half. Only Messiah walked between it. So when we broke the covenant, he had to take the hit for us, and he did look like those cut animals, because the Bible says Messiah was marred more, his visage was marred more than anybody had ever been. And man, I have seen some horrible people. I remember a guy in ER blew his front face off, and the whole front of his face off. I've seen people burned up in cars. I mean, and people have seen stuff in war. Messiah is worse than that. And Avimelech said, I do not know who did this. Anyway, the two cut a covenant, a berit. And Avraham set 7 lambs. We're at the Be'er Shavah, 7 lambs. 7 is complete. Rest, promise, oath. 7 lambs of the flock by themselves. And Avimelech said to Abraham, what do these 7 lambs which you have set by themselves mean? He said, you shall take at 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that it may be a witness to me that I have dug this at well. Therefore he called the place Be'er Shavah, well of 7 or oath, because they both swore there. 7 lambs, and they have both made an oath here. And they cut a covenant at Be'er Shavah, and Avimelech rose up in Beyt Kol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of Philistia, the Philistines. There it's Philistine. Now, Avraham, it's in italics because it's understood here, by the way. And if it's in bold, it means it's Hebrew, not English. And Avraham planted a tamarisk seed in Be'er Shavah and called there on the name of Yehovah, Shem Yehovah El Olam, the name of Yehovah, the everlasting God. Now, Olam can mean as far as you can imagine, space and time-wise. He's the everlasting God, but he's also the God that controls all of space and time, the entire universe. Because Olam can be world, universe, space and time, eternity, has many meanings. And Avraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days. Okay, that's that. Okay, our next reading, our last reading is from Bamidbar, Numbers 29, 1 through 6. So now we're going to go through when the appointed times are. And in the 7th month, not the 1st month, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is Yom Teruah, the day of alarm for you. And how do you alarm? By blowing a shofar. That's why people call it the day of blowing shofars, but it's actually, again, it's alarm. Yeah. Yeah, it just means alarm. And then Ruah is to blow something, blow a shofar. So Ruah, Teruah is just a tense of that. It becomes an action, a tense action, to blow, right? And you shall offer a burnt offering for a sweet savor to Jehovah. How do we offer a sweet savor now? Prayer. Holiness, sinlessness, ask for forgiveness, prayer of thanks and worship to our God. That's our sacrifice. A young bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old without blemish. And their meal offering, fine flour mixed with oil. It's always olive oil. That's why I put that italics there. 3/10 parts, ephah is understood. 3/10 parts for the bull, 2/10 parts of an ephah for the ram. And 1/10 part, again, ephah is understood for every lamb of the 7 lambs. 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for you. Messiah is all these. He represents, it's the different aspects of the salvation work that Messiah has done for us. Bulls are for leaders and nations and kings. Lambs are for us, right? Oil is God's Spirit. Kings are anointed with oil.
So it says 1/10 part of an ephah for the 7 lambs.
Yes.
I mean, it has to do something with tithing probably, and 7 lambs. So he's complete
Yes.
sacrifice for all.
He's a complete sacrifice. Besides the burnt offering of the new moon, because this is the 1st day of the 7th month, so this is Rosh Chodesh, new moon. So when the people say that the moon has nothing to do with, guess what? The new moon is said right here, 29:6. Yes, the moon does, it is part of the markers of time.
We had a conversation with it. I didn't know whether it was commanded to do sacrifices on the new moon, but obviously you do a burnt offering.
Yeah, it's just never specified.
Right.
We weren't told, but it's not part of the salvation plan, right? Besides the burnt offering of the new moon, the meal offering of it, and the perpetual burnt offering, this is the morning and evening sacrifice, and the meal offering and their drink offerings, because remember, wine represents blood, and blood seals all covenants. Bread is God's word, which contains the promises and the oaths, according to their mishpatim ordinances for a sweet savor, which is in belief and obedience, not just mechanical doing. It's believing in relationship. In Hebrew, it's a kavanah. You have to have that spiritual relationship. There's no kavanah. God accepts the lamb, but you don't get the benefit of it because you don't see the purpose. For a sweet savor, an offering made by fire to Jehovah. So when we do it at the right time, in the right place, in the right manner, it is a sweet savor. It is acceptable to God. It's not sour. I can remember being in Catholic church when they're doing that incense, and it smelled like burnt gym socks. It was just an awful smell. It was not a sweet savor. Ugh, horrible. And they sprinkle that filthy water on you. Chink it, ugh, get me out of here. I was raised a Catholic. I survived Catholic school as well. I like the one comedian talks about, I had a nun who taught hell like she knew, was there personally. Our Haftorah portion, now Haftarah, rather, not Torah, Haftarah portions come from the time of when the Greeks did not allow anyone to read Torah, circumcise their children, do any sacrifices in the temple. They had to sacrifice pigs to Zeus. And so, since they couldn't read Torah, then they came up with other readings in the rest of the Testament with the O in front of it, the original older part of the Testament that related to the Torah portions. This, our Haftorah portion, comes from Shmuel Aleph, Samuel 1, first Samuel. And there was a certain man of Ha-Ramatayim Sophim, the heights of the watchers, of the hill country of Ephraim. Now, Ephraim's land is just north of the territory of Yehudah. And it goes from north of Jerusalem all the way over to present-day Tel Aviv. There's a band, and that's the land of Ephraim, from the mountains all the way to the sea, just so you know where we are. This is absolutely two houses, because you have Yehudah in the south and Ephraim in the north. By the way, the tribe of Ephraim will be the lead tribe that rules over the 10 tribes, and Yehudah is the lead tribe that rules over the southern kingdom. Although Yehudah, because when Yehudah gave the sash and the ring and the staff to Tamar, and she's from Levi, he handed over all his family authority to the Levites, and to this day in Jerusalem, it's the priesthood, the Levites, that control much of life in present-day Israel. But still, Yehudah is the lead tribe in the south, Ephraim in the north. So he's from the land of Ephraim, and he's an Ephrati. He's from Ephraim. And he had two wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other is Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Peninnah represents Yehudah, Hannah represents Ephraim. And this man went up out of the city from year to year to worship and to sacrifice to Yehovah Tsabaoth in Shiloh. Now, Shiloh is where the tent of meeting was before it was moved to Jerusalem. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Pinchas, Kohanim, priests to Yehovah, were there. And when the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he gave to Peninnah his wife and to all her sons and her daughters portions, and to Hannah he gave a double portion. But what does Ephraim have? They have the understanding who Messiah is. That's the double portion. That's like a firstborn, right? If you're in relationship with salvation with Messiah, you get that double portion, that firstborn portion. For he loved Hannah, but Jehovah had shut up her womb. And her rival provoked her to make her fret because Jehovah had shut up her womb. Now it says in the end times that no longer will Ephraim be jealous of Yehudah, no longer will Yehudah vex Ephraim. Here it is in 1 Samuel. It's the same thing. Because to this day, people are jealous of the power and the wealth and the influence that Jews have. Well, why? Because they keep Torah. Even those secular ones who have some understanding of Torah. Face it, the Jews keep the Bible a lot better than Christians do. They just do. And when you do God's will, irregardless of your relationship, blessings come. And the house of Yehudah has been taking the hits, and the world has been trying to kill Jews for years and years and years, and Yeshua just keeps blessing them and blessing them and blessing them. Hallelujah. But Ephraim still has the relationship. When Messiah came, remember when the Samaritan woman came out and they were contending, are you going to worship here or worship there? He says, it's not Jerusalem or where you worship, it's you worship me in spirit, which is Ephraim, and truth, Torah, which is Yehudah. So when Christians, which is happening now, start coming into Torah understanding, it changes how they behave. And now they're keeping the feast days. More and more Christians are doing this. And now the blessings, the fullness of the blessings are starting to come out in the house of Ephraim, which is basically Christianity. And there are lots of Jews now that are becoming believers in Messiah, but they are bringing truth with them, Torah. And I personally believe that when we get to the fullness of this Messianic movement, it's basically the house of Yehudah that's going to lead it, because they have Torah. They have Torah. And when they come to an understanding of Messiah, it opens up mighty doors, because remember in the New Testament it says if you can get one of these Torah teachers to become a believer, he will open up for you the secrets within the Torah. Remember, we teach a lot on jots and tittles. There's a lot of stuff. There's numbers, there's patterns. I mean, we teach on some of this stuff, but I tell you, some of these scribes, they really know a lot about these different patterns.
Ultimately, Yeshua is the scribe.
Yeshua is the ultimate scribe. If you get him into your congregation, he opens up everything. That's absolutely the ultimate meaning of that, the penultimate. Because without Messiah, it's just words. That's why when we open up our congregation, opening prayer, we ask for Messiah to teach us, because he's the teacher. Just because I'm standing up here doesn't mean anything. If it's not Messiah teaching, it's a waste of time. And a rival provoked her, right? And as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of Jehovah, again, they're in Shiloh, so you know this is the time of David, before the temple. It's not Solomon's time, because that's when the temple was built. So she provoked her, and she wept and did not eat. And you notice Ephraim and Yehuda are still together, that people from an Ephraimite is still coming down to the temple. See, these are clues. They're time markers. Shiloh is because David is the one. It has to be in the time of David, because David wanted to bring the Ark of the Covenant up to Jerusalem, so he hadn't conquered the floor of Atad yet, and they hadn't even brought the tent of meeting, which was on the Exodus, up to Jerusalem yet. So this is the earlier part of David's reign. So as year by year, so Peninnah provoked her, and she wept and did not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep, and why do you not eat, and why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons, the 10 tribes? 10 again is also test. 10 commandments. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh. We tend to say Shiloh, but in Hebrew it's pronounced Shiloh. And after they had drunk. Now Eli, the priest, was sitting at the seat by the doorpost of the temple of Jehovah. And if you read about these kids, the father's okay, but the sons are a mess. Yeah. So he did not raise his children property, his son's property. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to Jehovah and wept sore. I personally believe she was speaking in tongues, because she vowed a vow and said, Jehovah Tzevaot, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your handmaid and remember me and not forget at your handmaid, but give at your handmaid a boy, then I will give him to Jehovah all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come on his head. That's a Nazirite vow. This is Samuel. Yes. And it came to pass, as she continued praying before Jehovah, that Eli marked at her mouth. He saw her lips moving. And Hannah, she spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. I just believe she was speaking in tongues. Pardon? Praying in the Spirit. It's probably the best way. She's praying in the Spirit. Therefore, Eli thought that she had been drunken. No.
He's seeing in the flesh.
Because he's not a good guy. Remember, he falls over backward and dies when he hears his sons died. And Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk, and put away at your wine from you? And Hannah answered, no, my lord Adoni, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit, and I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink. Nazirite.
So he's thinking drunkenness because his sons are drunkards.
Yes, that's his paradigm. Because his sons later, other readings, they're having sex in the tent of meeting, and they're eating right out of the sacrificial pot, and they're drunk all the time. Yeah. So what he's used to in his house, he imagines she's doing. Put away the wine from you. And Hannah answered, no, Adoni, my lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, and I poured out my soul before Jehovah. Do not count at your handmaid for a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and my provocation have I spoken hitherto, up until this time, is what that means. And Eli answered, go in peace, and Elohe Yisrael, the God of Israel, grant at your petition that you have asked of him. Now he's high priest, and the high priest prophesies even though he's sitting in the seat of Moses, or this high priest seat, so God will use him even though he's not that good a guy. Remember, Caiaphas, isn't it profitable that one man die instead of the whole nation? And it literally says in the Testament with the N in front of it, that he was prophesying because he was the high priest that year. So God is telling her through his voice that your petition has been granted. And she said, let your handmaid find favor in your sight. And the woman went away and ate, and her facial expression was not sad anymore. Why? Because she believed the word of God that came through this priest. That's how our continent should be. Yeshua loves us and wants to save us. We can go in peace in this world. No matter what happens to us. Look, we may go through pain physically, but spiritual pain, no. And they rose up early in the morning and worshiped before Jehovah and returned and came to their house to Ha-Ramah, the Ramah literally. And Elkanah knew at Hannah, they went to bed together, his wife, and Jehovah remembered her. So now we know, by the way, to know someone is a union between a man and a woman. I'm trying to be clean as possible here. And it came to pass when the time had come about that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called et Shemo Shemuel. His name Shmuel, Samuel, which means Shmuel, Shema, to hear. Shemu, voice of God, heard by God. Shema Israel, Yehovah Eloheinu, you'll hear, O Israel. So it's that same root of to hear, to be heard by God, heard of God, Shmuel. This U being related to the masculine, saying, because I have asked him of Jehovah. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to Jehovah the yearly sacrifice and at his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, until the Na'ar be weaned, and I will bring him, and he may appear it before Jehovah and will abide there forever. Moses was weaned and then brought into the house of Pharaoh. But this time, Shmuel is weaned and brought into the house of God. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems you good. Wait until you have weaned at him. Only Jehovah establish at his word. And the woman waited and nursed at her son until she weaned at him. I'm guessing 3.5 years. See, Messiah's time, 3.5 years, right? We're not told. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, because he's old enough to walk. She didn't have to carry him. It's not like a 6-month-old baby. And she took with her 3 bulls and 1 ephah of meal and a bottle of wine and brought him to the house of Jehovah in Shiloh. So again, we're still in the early time of David's reign. He has not moved the tent of meeting up to Jerusalem. And the lad was young. He's a young boy. He could be 5. We're never told. And they killed at the bull and brought at the lad to Eli. And she said, oh, my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to Jehovah. For Na'ar Hazeh, this the lad I prayed, and Jehovah has given me at my petition which I asked of him. And I also have granted him to Jehovah, and as long as he lives, he is granted to Jehovah. And he worshipped Jehovah there. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart exalts in... So this is a prophetic prayer. My heart exalts in Jehovah. My horn is exalted in Jehovah. So horners, leaders. He's the horn of salvation. My mouth is enlarged over my enemies because I rejoice in Yeshuatecha, your salvation. Okay? If you block off this is salvation of, and this is a masculine singular. The salvation of Jehovah is what she's talking about. I've seen your salvation. I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one as holy as Jehovah, for there is no one besides you, nor is there any rock like our God. So this Yeshua is the rock of our God. Talk no more of so exceedingly proudly. Do not let arrogance come out of your mouth, for El Da'ot Jehovah, the Jehovah is a God of knowledge, Da'at being knowledge of, and by him actions are weighed. He's the judge of all the earth. The bows of the mighty men are broken. That's the coming judgment, destruction of the wicked. Those who stumbled are guided with strength. We are resurrected and saved. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. The ones that look like they're ruling the world will end up losing everything, and the ones who are going to be mistreated more and more, we will come out exalted. Yes, the barren one has borne 7. It's complete, right? Remember, the land says, Zion says, where have all these come? All these children come flying in on the dovecotes. Yes, the barren has borne 7, and she who has many sons languishes. Jehovah kills and make alive. This is also what David says in the Psalms. You are feared, Jehovah, because you kill and make alive. You destroy the wicked and resurrect your people. He brings down to the grave and brings up. Okay, Sheol. It's not hell, it's the grave. There is no hell. There's hellfire, but that's the fire of destruction. Jehovah makes poor and makes rich. He brings low. He also lifts up. He raises up the poor out of the dust. He lifts up the needy from the dunghill to make them sit with princes and inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are of Jehovah. So now we know what the pillars of earth are. It's a belief in Jehovah. So when the flood came and the pillars of the earth were broken because the world had rejected Messiah completely and the whole physical and spiritual protection system collapsed. And he has set Tevel, the world, on them. See, this is the word for the world. So Olam can mean world, but Tevel is the physical aspect, Olam being more the spiritual aspect of it. Tevel is like this globe. That's Hevel. That's Hevel. He will keep the feet of his merciful ones. He will not let us stumble. He will keep us on his path. And the wicked shall be put to silence and darkness, death in the grave, for no man shall prevail by strength. How shall we prevail? By salvation relationship with Messiah only. Those who strive with Jehovah shall be broken to pieces. Strive with him means against him. Remember Moses and Aaron saying all the time, why are you striving and yelling at us? You're really yelling and striving with Jehovah. He will thunder against them in the heavens. Jehovah will judge the ends of the earth, the entire world. And he will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. The leadership, kingship of the Messiah. But God says, I share my glory with no one. So Jehovah is the beloved. Yeshua, Jehovah are both Yah, the beloved. In our Testament with the N in front of it, the New Testament comes, it also means renewed, Brit Chadashah, Chadash, or to renew, like make good as new. I mean, it has many ways you can translate it. Comes from Luke, which is Luke, Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, and Revelation and Acts. First one is Luke 21, 1 through 38, that's taken from the Greek. And having looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury, and he also saw a certain poor widow putting 2 leptons there, which is the smallest coin. Look this up, lepta, 2 quadrants, the lowest value coin of the Roman Empire. And he said, truly, I say unto you, this poor widow put in more than all. All those out of their abundance put into the gifts unto God, but she out of her poverty put in all the living which she had. Complete and utter trust. Complete trust. We need to give all of ourselves to Messiah, not 10%. And as some were speaking about the sanctuary that had been adorned with beautiful stones and gifts, he said, these that you see, days will come in which stone will not be left upon stone, which will not be thrown down. Now remember, we are lively stones, so yes, the physical temple was torn down, but also the people were scattered, and not one person was left in Jerusalem when the Romans attacked. And they asked him, teacher, then when will these things be? And what will be the sign of these things, when these things are about to occur? Now, Matthew, it's written a little differently. Tell you the signs of the end times. Remember Matthew 24? He said, watch that you do not be led astray. That means the whole world is trying to lead us astray. For many will come on my name, or in my name, saying, Ego eimi, I am. Also, the time has come, do not go after them. There have been many, many false messiahs, man. It's amazing. And it's going to get worse. And when you hear of wars and disturbances, isn't that what we talk about almost every week? Right? Assassinations, diseases, false diseases. For these things must first occur, but the end is not at once. Then he said unto them, nation, ethnos, is where we get tribes from, ethnic, right? So nation, again, in the Bible relates to tribal lines, genetic lines. People relates to countries where tribes or groups of people come under one belief system. And just repeat that over and over, because I'm saying nation, but it actually means tribe. Ethnos will be lifted up against ethnos. Yeah, the whole world, little bit older than y'all, but I remember when Yugoslavia was a nation. And a friend of mine in college, his ancestors, and he still had a lot of relatives in Yugoslavia, and his uncle told him, when Tito dies, Yugoslavia will fall apart, and it's going to be tribe against tribe, group against group, ethnos against ethnos. And so that's the Balkans also. So the Balkanization of the world is getting peoples to hate other peoples. Blacks against whites, Asians against, whatever, left-handed against right-handed. I remember there's a teacher I think it was in Minnesota years ago as an experiment just to show how people can be manipulated. He started telling people that all the blue-eyed people are no good. And by the end of that class, they were really persecuting these blue-eyed kids, and then she had to put a stop to it. It's just showing to you, look, you can be manipulated if you're not careful. This is what Hitler did, right? Against the Jews. It wasn't just against Jews, against homosexuals, against just, what was the other one? Gypsies, black people, yeah. If you weren't supposedly Aryan, blue-eyed with blonde hair, he was Jewish with black hair and dark eyes. In fact, he had his entire village where he was raised completely obliterated, and all the records of his family obliterated. Because everything he purposed, he was none of those things. Remember the leader of Iran a few years ago? He's also a Jewish man. Reprobate Jewish guy. Okay, tribe against tribe, ethnos against ethnos, and basilia, kingdom against kingdom, country against country. Germans going to fight. You have Germany, France, English, Scottish, Americans, Mexico, Canada. It's going to get insane here. You also have religious definition. Look in the Islam world, Shia versus Sunni. Christians against Jews, Baptists against Methodists, Catholics against everybody else. Everybody against Catholics. These systems are designed to cause conflict and keep people from being united under the proper belief system, which is the salvation of Messiah. That cannot stand. That's right. That's exactly what it's about. So long as Yehuda and Ephraim are divided, it cannot stand before Messiah. What does it say? When the house of Yehuda returns and comes into a belief of Messiah with Ephraim, who now knows what Torah is, what will that be like? It says it'll be life from the dead, resurrection. So when Messiah comes, the two houses are joined together to stand before him as one body. Two sticks in the hand of, Ezekiel's promise. 2 sticks in the hand of one shepherd. And there will be great earthquakes from place to place and famines and plagues. But if you look on Google, just look up force 5 earthquakes, 5 and greater. It's exponential rise in the last 30 years. There will be terrors and great signs from heaven. We're going to have, of course, NASA always tell you there's a giant meteor coming within 500 gazillion billion miles of you. You better watch out. Remember the last one? Everyone was so scared it was like 500 million miles away. It was a near miss. Missed it by that much. Don't be afraid. It's the most often repeated commandment in the Bible. Do not fear. God is in charge of everything. Everything. But before all these, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you. Boy, it is starting now. England and France are both persecuting people for anything they say that they don't want to be said. And basically the laws are written in such a way that if they don't like you, they can put you in jail because it doesn't matter what you say. They will lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you into the synagogues and prisons, being led away before kings and governors on account of my name. And it will become for you for a witness. Settle then in your hearts now, not to premeditate to make a defense, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all opposing you will not be able to withstand or contradict. And you will be betrayed also by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, whom Messiah was betrayed by. And they will put some of you unto death, and you will be hated by all because of my name. And a hair out of your head shall no way perish. But by your patience you will gain your souls. Soul is a resurrected body with the spirit of Messiah put back in. And when you see Jerusalem being encircled by armies, then recognize its destruction has drawn near. Now this is twofold, because right after Messiah left in 70 AD, the temple was completely destroyed by the Romans, but now also the land is going to be, Jerusalem is going to be half conquered in the end times. And then let none of the ones in Yehuda Then let the ones in Yehuda flee into the mountains, and the ones in its midst let them go out, and those in the open spaces let them go out, not go into her. For these are days of vengeance, when all things that have been written are to be fulfilled. And this is the book of Revelation talks about these times. And woe unto the pregnant women and the ones suckling in those days, for there shall be distress on the earth and wrath on this people. And they will fall to the edge of the sword and will be led captive into all the nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by nations until the times of the nations, the tribes, be fulfilled. But now look what's happening in Jerusalem. Yehud is back. There are more Jews in the land now than out of the land. That happened I can't remember, like 10 years ago, 7 years ago. It's, time goes fast as you get older. But I remember when it was announced that at a certain point, because it used to be New York had more Jews in it than any other place in the world. And now finally Israel does. There are more and more returning. And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, the blood moons and the solar eclipses coming again in 28 and 29, by the way. And on the earth, anxiety of tribes, nations, will, with bewilderment, roaring of people, sea and of surf. It's a lot of anger in the world. Humans fainting from fear, and expectation of the things coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. I think we're going to have just book of Revelation. A third of the ships destroyed. A third of the ships. Third of all the trees, third of all the grass, half of, 2/3 of all of mankind are basically going to die before Messiah comes. Tribulation in a 3.5-year period is going to get worse and worse and worse. Just like in the plagues on Egypt, they got worse and worse and worse. Until the end, the leaders of Pharaoh come into him like the leaders of the one world government are going to say, just let the people go. Can't you see the world or Egypt is destroyed?
One of the end plagues in Pharaoh was darkness.
Darkness. The last great plague is darkness. And then the firstborn son is killed. Satan is killed. Remember, he was one of the covering cherubim. He was first in greatness in the heavens next to Messiah. Of the created beings, he was first. Firstborn son is destroyed. It's a new one, thank you. And they will see the Son of the human, Son of man in Hebrew, Son of Adam, coming in a cloud with power and much glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, stand up and lift up your heads, because your deliverance draws near. And he spoke a parable unto them. Behold the fig tree and all the trees. Now, fig trees bear fruit, and the other trees are fruitless, right? Behold the fig tree and the trees. When they sprout leaves, seeing, you will know for yourselves that already the summer is near. So also when you see these things happening, know that the kingdom of God is near. To me, this indicates when we see Yehuda returning to the land, there's also other people returning to the land. We know that the time is near. If you go by a generation, which is 40 to 50 years, 48, right? 70 to 80 years, you go 48, 80 years later is 28, 29. And this generation that saw Israel return, remember when Ben Gurion stood up? Well, you don't remember, but I don't either. It's before my time. Barely missed it by that much. He stood up, today I declare the nation of Israel. That's a prophecy fulfilled from Isaiah. Who is like our God, who can create a nation in a day? And after Yehuda, the house of Yehuda, those three tribes have been scattered all over the world for many, many, many years. It's the only time it's ever happened in history that a group of people go back to their original location and reestablish that kingdom. Never happened before. And on the 48, 49 war and the 67 war and the 70, all these wars, miracles by God. He is with Yehuda. Remember the last time they were shooting Katyusha rockets and they would fire at Jerusalem and they would end up in the ocean. And the leaders were complaining. He says, what's wrong with these rockets? Well, aren't you aiming them correctly? He says, no, we're aiming it correctly. He says, their God is putting them in the sea. The time is near. Truly I say unto you, in no way will this generation that sees these things pass away until all these things shall occur. The heaven and the earth will pass away, but my words will not ever pass away. And take heed unto yourselves that your hearts not be loaded down with headaches and with drinking and with anxiety of life, and that day come suddenly upon you. For For as a snare it will come in on the one sitting on the face of the earth. One's not paying attention. But be watchful at every time, begging that you be counted worthy to escape all these, the things that being about to come to pass, to stand before the Son of the human, Messiah. And in the days he was teaching in the sanctuary, and going out in the nights he lodged on the Mount of Olives, on the mount called of the Olives. And the people came early unto him in the sanctuary to hear him. So he taught daily in the outer court. He was not a Levite, so he never went into the temple. Next reading comes from 1 Thessalonians 13 through 18 of chapter 4. But we do not want you to be ignorant, brothers, concerning those who have fallen asleep, so that you do not grieve like the rest who have no hope. In other words, so people are trying to twist the truth about death. When you death, you're in the grave, and those who are God's, everyone will be resurrected, some to eternity with God and some to the final second death. For if, conditional, we believe that Yeshua died and rose again, even so, the God will bring with him the ones who have fallen asleep in Yeshua. That doesn't mean from heaven. He's bringing with him into the millennial kingdom. He comes down here and we join him there. These are Testament with O in front of it, Old Testament prophecies. Zion says, who are these? They're flying in like the dovecote, like groups of birds flying into the land. We never go to heaven. Heaven comes here. New Jerusalem is seen descending as a bride down here. I go to prepare a place for you. Right? For this we tell you by the word of the Lord, word of Jehovah, that we who are alive on the earth, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will in no way precede the ones who have fallen asleep. No one's going ahead of anybody else. For the Lord himself will descend from where? From heaven with a shout. We just talked about the shofar shout. He will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel. That's the top angel, ark, covering. Messiah is the archangel. And with the trumpet of God, here we go, the shofar of God, and the dead in Messiah will rise first. Here. Then we who are alive, who remain, will be caught up together with them in the atmosphere, in the clouds. I see clouds up here. There are no clouds in the universe. Just talking about gas clouds, but it ain't the same thing, baby. This is the millennial kingdom in this realm. And who are alive will remain, be caught up together with them, changed in an instant, to meet the Lord in the air, the atmosphere. So we be with the Lord forever. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Elei Hasadot, these the secrets of Revelation is taken from the Hebrew, chapter 8 through 9:21. And when he opened the seventh seal, the seventh is the final, all of them in the heavens were silent for a moment. And I saw 7 messengers coming before Jehovah, and 7 shofars, trumpets of ram's horns, were given unto them. And another messenger stood next to the temple, and golden fire pans were in his hand, and much incense was given into him. Incense is prayer, fires from the altar, right? This is linked to the time of when the plague went out from the temple, and Aaron took fire and incense and went to the edge of death and stopped the line of death. This is related to that. And much incense was given unto him to give prayer to the holy ones before the temple and the throne. Yes. Day of Atonement, 7, destruction, final finality of all things. And the smoke of the incense of the holy ones, okay, when smoke fills the tabernacle, and this is when much incense is put on the incense altar. And the smoke of the incense of the holy ones went up from the hand of the messenger before Jehovah, and the messenger took the fire pan and filled it with fire and poured it on the earth. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and 7 messengers with the 7 shofars prepared to tokie, to blow. Taka, taku, these are all tenses, prepared to blew, so that's a past tense. And the first messenger blew, and there came hail mixed with blood. And it fell upon the earth, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green plants of the field were burned up. And the second blew, and there came like a great mountain burning with fire. It's like something coming from, something's actually going to hit the earth. And it went into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, death. And a third of the healthy living beings of the sea died, and a third of the ship sank. And a third blew, and a star fell from the heavens, and it was burning, and it fell in a third of the wells of the waters. And the name of the star is Tolaat, crimson of the crimson worm, blood, red. And a third of the waters became bitter, and many of the sons of Adam. Yeah, I've seen it. That's a terrible mistake. A third of the sons of Adam died from the hand of the water because of their bitterness. Now, there's many meanings of this. This could be a physical event, could be a spiritual event. I believe it's both. The star that fell from heaven as Satan was thrown down to the earth, and his message, a third of the people will die because of that.
We've talked about this before. He's bound to
this atmosphere, this realm.
right here.
He's bound here. No, now he's bound here, and he knows his time is short. So now we're into the tribulation. And the fourth blew, and there was smitten a third of the sun and the moon and the stars. A third of the day did not shine, and also the night. I do find it interesting that the son of Krakatoa is growing. Krakatoa was that gigantic volcano that blew, and I think someone said there was no summer for like a year or two. But if something giant thing would cover the atmosphere, we have three atmospheric bands: equatorial band, the northern and southern band. So depending on where this object or thing or whatever happens, it can darken a third of the earth. That's in the physical sense. And a third of the day, and did not also at night. Now, eventually, the whole earth is going to be dark. And I saw one messenger flying in the heavens, and he cried out with a great voice, "Oi, oi, oi, whoa, whoa, whoa." Must be Jewish. Oi, oi vey, right? Unto those that dwell upon the earth, because of the sound or the voice of the shofars that the three messengers still have to blow. And the fifth messenger blew, and I saw one star fall onto the earth from the heavens, and unto him the key of the deep was given. And he opened up the deep, and there went out smoke from the deep, as smoke from a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the deep. So that's the physical aspect of it. And from the smoke came arba'im, locusts over the earth, and unto them was given authority to destroy. And now we're in other places it describes these in detail, what they're like. It's basically demonic beings. And it was said unto them, you must not damage the green plants of the plants of the field of the trees, but only of the sons of Adam who do not have the seal of Jehovah upon their forehead. So now in the very end times before Messiah comes, bad people are going to harm bad people. They can't harm the remnant of God's people that are alive. And it was given unto them not to kill at them, but to inflict at them with pain 5 months. So now we have 5 months of darkness, 5 months of people wishing for death but not getting it. And their pain was as the pain of scorpions when they sting. And in those days, you will skillfully try to die, but you will not find it. And the locusts were like the horses prepared for war, and upon their heads were objects like the appearance of crowns of gold, and their appearance was like the appearance of a man or the man, and their hair was like the hair of a woman, and their teeth like the teeth of a lion. So remember, this is John in the first century trying to describe end time machines or demons, something he's never seen. I think this is a mixture of physical and spiritual stuff going on. Verse 9:9, by the way, is not in the Hebrew, so from the Greek. And they had breastplates like iron breastplates, and the sound of the wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses racing into battle. Back to the Hebrew. And their tails were like the tails of locusts, and the authority was given on them to inflict the sons of man, Adam, with pain 5 months. And their king was Malach Echad Mitahom, one messenger of the deep, and his name in Hebrew is Abaddon, which means destruction, and in the tongue of the Greeks, it's Apollyon. And one anguish was gone by. Look, Ra'eh, 2 more anguishes are coming. And the 6th messenger blew, And I heard one voice from the four corners of the temple from before Jehovah, and it said unto the sixth messenger, go and set free the four messengers that are bound. So they're not good guys. They've been bound. God's messengers are never bound, right? The four messengers who are bound at the great mighty river that is called the Euphrates. So this final destruction will come from Euphrates, which goes from Turkey all the way down to the Arabian Gulf. It's the northern border, by the way, of the land of Israel, the promised land. And the four messengers were made ready to kill a third of the sons of man in an hour and a day and a month and a year, a specific moment. And the number of their chariots was 20 million. I heard their number. And I saw the appearance of the horses and those that sat upon them. They had a garment of pitch and sulfur and fire. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of a lion, and from their mouth went fire and smoke and sulfur. And by these three, a third part of the sons of man were killed. And their power was in their mouth, and their tails were like serpents, and they had heads, and with these they killed them. This is a gigantic army, 200 million, 20 million man army, 20 million chariots. Yeah. Notice in these end times, we're down to basic stuff again, horses and chariots, bows and arrows. But there were still many sons of Adam who were not put to death by these plagues, because they made repentance concerning their evil deeds by not praying unto thee, Satan, nor unto the idols that are made of potter and wood and silver and gold, that do not have the ability in them to walk or to speak or to hear. But who did not do repentance concerning the sorceries or concerning their fornication or concerning their thefts. So they're not praying to Satan anymore, but their behavior hasn't changed. Now, the last reading is from Acts chapter 2, 14 through 18. It's from the Greek. But standing up with the 11, Peter lifted up his voice and spoke out unto them, men, Jews, and all the ones living in Jerusalem, let this be known unto you, and listen to my words, for these not drunk as you imagine, for it is the third hour of the day. This is the time of Pentecost. All the feast days together, yeah. It's all one giant event, because at the very end, at the end of the millennium, they all have import. The finality or the ultimate purpose or teaching of all the feast days are done right at the very end. Like I said, Passover is really the judgment, and the latter one is Yom Kippur, which is the destruction of the wicked, and then Sukkot is when we tabernacle forever with our God, and everything in between. In the midpoint here is the Torah is given. We're betrothed to our God, and these are the rules we will live by in marriage. But we don't go into the wedding until the end of the millennium. But once we come into a salvation relationship, we are betrothed, promised to be His bride. You know, when a man says, "This is my fiance,"
Passover, you're promised.
Pardon?
Passover, you're promised, and then
yes,
Feast of Weeks, you're married.
Yes, absolutely. So when a man says, "This is my fiance," it's not my wife. I have made a promise to her that in the future I will marry her. That's right. We will be resurrected. We'll be in the Adamic mode. He had to die because the husband has to die for the bride to remarry. But since we married another, we have to die, and we come up in a completely different mode. We're the same spiritual being, but in the fullness of God's image, not in a partial image. These are not drunk as you suppose, for it is the third hour of the day. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, basically. But this is what has been spoken of by the prophet Joel. It shall be in the last days that God will pour from says God, I will pour out from my spirit on all flesh, Pasan Sarka, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your youths shall see visions, and your elders shall dream dreams. And also I'll pour out my spirit on my servants and servant women in those days, and they shall prophesy.
It's interesting that Joel, chapter 2, verse 1, talks about God coming with a shout.
Yes, with the shout of the shofar. This is Yom Teruah. This is when we see him. And for 10 days, see, that's why this is called the 10 days of awe, because people think on Yom Teruah he's here. No, the sky opens up, and for 10 days he gets closer and closer and closer. That's why people freak out but godless ones will hide from the brightness of, and as he's approaching, other place in the Bible says, space and time are, planets and entire constellations are going to be moved out of the way.
So in time frame, you have the end of the tribulation towards the end, right? And then you talk about the two witnesses that look like they're killed.
You're right.
Then the bride's resurrected. That would be those two witnesses.
Yeah, yes.
And he's coming right after that, and then everybody's like, oh, look, and they're diving under rocks, trying to hide from him.
We won. Oh no, we lost. Yeah,
Right.
basically one world government, the whole system. They're going to be sure they won. They finally killed these guys. The plagues are going to stop, and the next thing and the sky, as the sky's opening up, sometime within that period, just before he comes, they're resurrected. Yeah. Yeah. When people call these them the minor prophets, they're not minor prophets. They're just shorter books, smaller scrolls. But you take all those. It's one chapter, but these are all prophecies related, very powerful prophecies about the end time. Probably much, you look at Jeremiah and Isaiah, yeah, they talk about end times, but they're also talking more about events within their time overlaid with these prophecies, whereas these quote-unquote minor prophets are almost all focused on the end times. And a lot of the quotes in the book of Revelation, in the Testament with the N in front, they're quoted from those quote-unquote minor prophets. So now we'll go to how to read Hebrew. I always have to remember I'm doing it from here. Yep. Okay, Hebrew, once again, is a alphabet of consonants, and all these dots and dashes that you see were actually added. It's called Nakud. That helps you to learn how to pronounce these words, which are all consonants. This is a Vav, a Yod, a Hey, another Vav, and a Hey. So let's go through the vowel pointings again. So horizontal bars like this are the A sound. The A in Hebrew is always a sound, short A. A single bar like this is a full note. If it has a little line coming down from the middle, that's a half note. Think about time of expression like a musical note. And this is actually a quarter note. Horizontal dots like this is the E sound, which is a short E, an eh. Two dots like that is full note. This is divided in half, a half note. And if this Shavah, these two vertical dots were next to this or next to this, it would be a quarter note. Single dots can do many things. In this case, inside of a letter, they can either double the sound like this one, or they can change the sound. This would be K instead of a KH. This is a B instead of a V sound. Here you see if the dot is on the right, it's a shin. If the dot is on the left, it's a sin. So those are sound altering dots. Like P is either P or PH. But singular dots, if it's down below, which I don't see any, that would be, oh yeah, here's one. That's an E sound. If it's above, like here, it's an O sound. And if like a Vav had one right in the middle of it, that'd be an U sound. So now we'll go through. Again, this is Vav, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. So this is the root word here is Yahovah, and this means and, Vav and. So this is Vi, because it's a Vayehovah, Vihova, and Yehovah. This is the Pei, since it's a dot and it's not a PH, it's a P sound. So it's Pei, Kof, Dalet. So it's P, Q, D, transliterated. And this is a half note A, full note A. So this is Pa, Kad. Visited. Aleph Tav. Remember, Messiah says, I'm the Aleph Tav. In the Greek, he says, I'm the Alpha and Omega. This is a definitive direct object pointer linguistically in Hebrew. But we know it stands for Messiah, because Messiah says to John, I am the Aleph Tav. And it's pronounced as et. It's a half note E on the Aleph, which is always silent, into the Tav. The way to remember its sound is has a toe. Letters has a toe on the Tav. Et. Here's a Sin, because the dot's on the left. Half note A. Rounded Resh. Half note A into the Hey. So here you see the Dalet and the Resh, which are sometimes they're easily confused. Remember that the Resh is rounded on the back edge. This is Sarah. Sarah. Oh, et, by the way, I just put Yeshua because it stands for Yeshua, but it's untranslated from one language to another. And here's Sarah. Here's the Kaf with the full note A. The Aleph is carrying a quarter note A. The Sheen, because the dot's on the right, a half note E into the rounded Resh. This is Ka Asher. It's as had. Now, he is understood. This, Asher is the root word, which can mean many things. It's just I don't really know. I mean, literally, you would say as when, or but we don't say that in English. So, as had. But had is really an action word. But this is just the best you can translate this. This is just how it's said in Hebrew, but we don't really have an equivalent in English directly. So as had, okay. Now he is understood. Oh, sorry. Amar, to say. Aleph, half note A. Mem, half note A, and the rounded resh. I hit the button twice. Amar, Emor, Amar, said. That's a tense. Here's a Vav, A, going into this Yod. So this becomes Vi. But now the Yod is doubled, so it also starts the next syllable. It says Ya. Now this is the Aleph, which is like, this is the Ain rather, which is like the Aleph, but the Aleph has a soft start. Think of a closed throat at the bottom, whereas the Ain is closed at the bottom, so the A sound, it comes a instead of a ah. So this is Vayas, Vayas, Vayas. And said, what? And did. So this is, the root here is asa. Asa. And someone did and did. Okay? Double prefix. And then the A sound is left off the end. Asa is to do, physically do something. Work, it can mean work. Here again is Jehovah. See, we see Jehovah up here. Here's Jehovah again. Yod, He, Vav, He. Here's the Lamed. There's our prefix. Our Seen at the left. Here again, this is Sarah. Here's Sarah up here. This is to Sarah or for Sarah. The Lamed can mean to or for. You can translate it either way, because really the two things are combined, because he did it to Sarah, but he also did it for Sarah. This is when she gives birth to Isaac. So here's that Ka'aser again. Ka'aser. As he had. That's right. Here's D. This is a Daled. Now, I don't know why that dot is in the D, whether it means like an emphatic start to the D, because you don't change the D sound unless there's some sound I don't know about. But this is a dalet carrying the E into the bet with the full note E. This is it's a letter I, but an I in most languages is a long E. That's a better way of saying this. Just in English, it's an I sound. Most languages, a long E sound, because the E sound in Hebrew is a short E into the rounded resh. So this is D, bear. The root of this is davar, which is word. So deber means said, or had spoken, had said. So when Jehovah visited through the power of Messiah, right? Sarah, as he had said, and he did, and did Jehovah for Sarah as he had spoken. The promise was fulfilled. So that concludes our service today, or the readings today. So yes, we will close in prayer. Lord Yeshua, we thank you for this time in your word and your presence with us. And Lord Yeshua, help us to keep these days properly and connect ourselves more fully to you, so that you can teach us and shape us and form us better. For if we give ourselves completely over to you, not partially, the work that you do to us would be much more powerful than it is partial. So we ask this for not only for us, but all the people listening, and to the people of the world, Lord Yeshua, put in their desire a heart to turn to you for all those that are yours. And we give thanks for this in your holy name, Yeshua. Amen and amen. Also, as a reminder, because we're going to have the regular Sabbath next week, this is the first day of the 7th month. On the 10th day of the 7th, which is next, is the 3rd, 3rd of October. We will also have another service here. And then 5 days after that are the 2 feast days for Sukkot. This is on top of the regular Sabbath. And we will have service here every day at noon during those times. And that concludes our service.